Welcome to the Communities of Character podcast, the share that shows rich conversation about character development across different vocations and callings. I'm Jennifer Hogan, and today is our final episode in our series on the 11 Principles Framework from Character.org. We'll be talking about the 11th principle, and you'll get to hear from a veteran administrator who's been leading this work in her school, which was named a 2021 National School of Character by Character.org. Kim Hauser has been in education for 30 years. She's taught kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and fifth grades. And this year, she begins her 18th year as an administrator. 8 as an assistant principal, 10 as a principal. And she's the mom of 2 grown sons. You are going to love the conversation with Kim Hauser. Hello, and thank you for joining us for today's episode of the Communities of Character podcast, a place where you can learn about all things character. I'm your host, Jennifer Hogan, and today's guest is the principal of a National School of Character, Kim Hauser. Welcome, Kim.
Thanks, Jennifer. It's great to be here.
Well, we are glad to have you. Full disclosure here to our listeners, Kim and I go way back. Yes, we were assistant principals in the Vestavia Hills School District before I left for a principalship in a neighboring district. And then Kim went on to become a principal in the Vestavia Hills District. And so, Kim, would you share with our listeners a little bit about your school and what it meant to be named a National School of Character by Character.org?
Well, we are an elementary school. We're now K-5. When I started here as an assistant principal 18 years ago, we were K-3 and had been K-3 for a long time and continued to be K-3 until about 3 years ago. Pre-COVID, we reorganized the district and now we're a K-5 school, which we love having the older kids here and we get to keep them all the way through 5th grade. So that was a transition of just a few short years ago. We have approximately at one time over 800 students. We're more like 750 now. So we're right here in Vestavia Hills, and the school is 45 years old. And to be a school of character was just icing on the cake. This has always been a special place, but once we became involved with Hope Academy at Samford University, it just spurred us on. I said, this is what our school is already doing, so much of what we're doing. But then through the process with Character.org, we realized we had work to do, which only improved our school. It wasn't really after the award, but getting the award was like, yes, everything's in place. And just and like Principle 11, you got to keep revisiting what you're doing to make sure you're on the right track.
Yeah, so, you do. Well, I know that. Yes, I know that you are a principal that truly walks the walk when it comes to being a role model for good character. And Hope, you mentioned Hope Institute, and it is such an incredible organization. And I truly feel grateful to serve as a facilitator for the Birmingham area schools. And, you know, through that, I've gotten to learn more about your school and the awesome things that are happening there. And I'm so excited for our listeners to learn from you today. But I'm really curious, were there any challenges that you faced when you were in your school were just starting that work of character education?
Well, I'll tell you, Jennifer, I inherited when I came here after having been at very many different schools and a school I taught at for about 10 years, I realized when I got to West that it was already a pretty special place that cared a lot about kids' character and the whole child. So I knew then I was very fortunate to inherit the people and the philosophy. But then when you really started looking more at how life was changing and parenting is changing and just society in general, we needed to continue that work in a more intentional way. There was not a lot of pushback. Who can argue teaching good character to kids because they're our future generation? But the things that we found that were kind of in our way a little bit was using common language and things like really focusing on the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. I mean, as a former first grade teacher, you know, you did this and you earned money for our school supply store and you could go buy things if you behaved appropriately or what, you know, we had to get away from that. And then that crazy clip chart where you move up and down and people know your behavior all day long, that, and teachers, that was a little bit of a pushback only because that's what they were used to. Once you gave them other strategies and they saw the benefits of it and that it could work without those things they had used for years, then everybody was on board.
I love that. And I love how you mentioned intentionality. That has come up in so many of these interviews. And, I know that the Hope Institute uses the 11 Principles framework to guide schools as you're trying to build these cultures of character. And how has the 11 Principles framework served you in your work around character education?
Well, I'll tell you, it has been tremendously beneficial. And I think I told you the story the first time I went and looked at that, and we were asked to do it at a kind of an intro to hope. Uh, I said, we've got this. I mean, we do these things because you can look at the title of the character of the principal and think that sure we do that, but when it's broken down, and especially the rubric you can use, you go, maybe not so much, maybe not, we're not a 4 there, we're a 2 there. And so with that, it just made you say, how can we improve parent communication? How can we involve our stakeholders more? How can we make sure they are aware that the West way is the best way, and that they are aware what our core values are? And just it I mean, principle by principle, if you take them one by one, there are areas that you can always improve. And that it's a rule book. It's the
Mhm.
Bible to go by in character teaching character education. And
Well,
just well, not teaching character education as much as honoring character and modeling character. You can't really teach it. It has to be weaved into every part of the day.
love it. And, really, it sounds like you use it as a reflection tool. I just love how you're talking about assessing all the things that you're doing,
Mhm.
because that's
Mhm.
important in the area of growth. And it just shows that your school is not stagnant, that you're continually learning as a leader, and helping your school just to continue to get better and better at what they do with character education. I'd love to hear in your experience, like, what are the keys to building this culture of character?
Well, the culture of character is to really get everybody and we had come up even before we had started attending Hope Institute, we had courtesy, respect, and responsibility are our 3 big words, and then somebody added the tagline, "The West way is the best way." So then that became our touchstone years ago, and through that, then we started attending Hope probably about 5 years ago, maybe, uh, and we came back and we had some discussion about, do we all believe in that? And Dr. Liz, uh, I'm sorry, Dr. Amy Johnston came and spoke at our school one day, and we had met her through Hope, and we spent a PD day with her. And she said, "Who came up with those 3 words?" And we realized it had been a small group of people a long time ago with the principal that hired me. And so we set out making sure that those were our core values, and we went through a process. And courtesy changed to kindness. We wanted a word stronger than courtesy that encompassed more of other core values because we think of those 3 words as an umbrella to all the wonderful words like empathy, acceptance, grit. I mean, we aren't saying those are the only 3 things because those mean so many things. And we surveyed parents, students, teachers, and we did informal talks and we did, formal surveys. And it all came back. Everybody wanted to keep respect and responsibility, but wanted kindness overwhelmingly, booted out courtesy. So we became so that there again shows it's an ever-changing model.
Mhm. Love that. And, you've talked so much about assessing and reflecting, and that is principle 11 of the 11 principles framework. And so I would love to hear, like, so what are some practical ways your school assesses this? One of the goals of the podcast is for our listeners to have some practical takeaways. So could you share, as a practitioner, how do you guys assess this?
Well, we did initially we looked at our surveys that Advanced Ed asked us to do several years ago, and does your child feel safe at school? All those things, and we looked at that from year to year, and then the Advanced Ed changed that a little bit, so we sent out some of our own, and then so those are some formal things you can do. You can look at office referrals, that kind of thing. Have things gone down, or how you talk to the children when they come to if something's happened on the playground. We are in elementary school, and just say, a child will say, I didn't show kindness. And I'll say, well, what does that mean? And because that's so vague, you've got to make sure, again, intentionality. What could you have done better? I could have been more kind. Well, tell me how you could have been more kind. You just have to informally as far as the formal assessments and the surveys, but our leadership, we talk about it. And then we have what we call light bulb lunches it was fifth grade. We hope to incorporate fourth grade. COVID keeps throwing little kinks and things, but we had a group of kids in every fifth grade class talk to their class. The counselor designed some questions, and then 3 kids got to eat with the principal, the assistant principal, and the counselors on like a Friday afternoon and give us the answers to those questions. Like, what do you like about our school? How can we improve? What core values do you think stand out the best? Which ones need improvement and how? Where do you see it? How do we see it in the lunchroom? We ask the kids, like, how do we show our core values when we go through the lunch line or when we travel in the hallway? So, like I said earlier, it's weaved into every part of our school day, and we announce it every morning. The West Way is the best way. And before we go on a field trip, I'll jump on the bus and say, okay, we're going to Aldrich Gardens today, second graders. What are the people at Aldrich Gardens going to say about the West Way? And they'll repeat, is the best way. And I mean, you just build it in and they just hear it so much. It's like osmosis. We've got to be good. We've got to have good character. It's who we are. And I'll say, they're going to tell me that it's the best group they've had in a while because you're going to show them what. And they'll say kindness, respect, and responsibility. And then, you cheerlead it all around, but then you talk more like we do school family meetings in the morning, and we start off with that, and a lot of things come out through that, and the teachers know to teach those words and to weave them into whatever a child may bring up. So I don't know if I specifically answered your question or talked around it.
Oh, good. Yeah, you did definitely give some practical ways. And I know that our listeners are going to hear that and think of ways that they can implement at their school. And you guys have such a strong culture of character. I want to hear, how important is teamwork and collaboration in building this culture of character? And what do you, as the principal, do to lead your staff this way?
Oh my gosh, I am such a relational person and I believe in relationships. We are not a top-down school at all. And so I think it's teamwork, collaboration are paramount. I mean, you have to listen to the people, you have to gather people, and even in PLC work, things can come up that we talk about, but you have to listen. And it sounds like I'm doing commercial for Hope, and I promise people I'm not. But through Hope, we've been able to take cohorts of teachers every year, and it'll be a year 1, and then you take the same group year 2. Well, you get really close with the teachers you take to this, and you listen to what they say, and through them, a lot of organic things have come out. We have cruise teams now where we do fun little activities before a faculty meeting because they thought everybody doesn't know everybody well enough. So they made groups of teachers together, and then there's a silly activity we have to do, but it's fun. It makes people laugh at the end of the day, and there's this bedazzled baton that they pass whoever wins the activity for the week. I mean, it's just fun, and we laugh, and laughter's great for the soul. So but when you listen to the people and you collaborate and you throw out the hard questions, like we don't do as good as we could at service learning. How can we make that better? Because it can't be a one person that makes all the decisions here. I mean, you just can't, but you have to be able to listen and like I say, continue to be the cheerleader for it and demand that that's who we are.
Well, and 2, you're taking care of the adult culture in the school as well. And that's so important in this.
Absolutely.
I would love to hear too, like, what do you wish your younger self knew about your current role as the leader of culture development at your school? Like, what would you tell your younger self about this work?
I would learn more about intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic motivation. That was a learning curve for me because the things I'd learned in undergraduate were a lot of more extrinsic motivation and how you can use this reward system or you can do that. So throw that out the window. And just that you have to be intentional. I mean, you mentioned that earlier that's come up a lot. So that's obviously a common theme. You have to be specific. You have to believe in it. And it's not something like we're going to open a box and here today the lesson says do so and so. I mean, it's got to be a part of everything you do. I mean, our classroom rules are all based, the teachers have to link back every classroom rule they make for their own class it has to umbrella under one of our core values. I mean, when I write a mini grant for the foundation, I go, how does this relate to one of our core values? Because everything in the school should go back to that. And if it's just everything you live and breathe, that, if I'd known that earlier on, I think that would have helped.
Wow, that's great advice. What about new teachers that are at your school? What structures do you have in place to mentor new teachers and really intentionally teach them about your culture?
Well, I think right off the bat, like I say, this was always a special place and people care about people. And it's always been kind of a pay it forward kind of an attitude. People have all remember what it's like to be the new teacher. So even if you're a mentor, because we do have an official mentoring person program in place. But if you're here on the weekend and you don't know where the bulletin board paper is kept and there's a third grade teacher, but you teach first, you are welcome to walk in their room and ask them a question. Everybody is just so genuinely happy to help our new teachers because they know we're a team and there's no one person that's going to outshine the other. And the collaborative nature is here. No one hoards things or tries not to share. And one thing I do, I believe in communication. As soon as we have board approval on new hires, I'll send out an email lickety split as soon as I make sure it's board approved and say, here are the new, Jennifer Hogan's going to be teaching third grade this year. She's replacing, so and so that's retiring, and then I'll say her personal email address is so and so. And a lot of times when new teachers are up here starting to work in their rooms, they'll say my inbox was inundated with people saying, "Welcome to West." I hope I can't wait to meet you or whatever. So I think right from the start that we show that excitement that they're on board. They know before they even step in the door, it's a special place.
Wow, that is awesome. How wonderful is it to be a new teacher to get all those welcoming emails?
Mhm. And I don't say email them. I say, here's our personal email if you want to. And I just cross my fingers and go, please, people do it. But then they always say, I was blown away. And, as a teacher, I always wanted to know what was going on in my school. And so I keep the things that I wish that I knew more of when I was a teacher. I try not to ever forget that is the hardest job in the building. And so I think, and they love that. They love knowing what's going on. And so, right after the board meeting, they're waiting for me to send that out if anything has changed that pertains to West. And they typically will send a quick email. It might be 2 lines, but I think that's good morale boost before they even walk in the door.
Yeah, and it makes them want to pay it forward so that when
Mhm.
the next year when you make new hires, they remember what it was like.
Mhm. Mhm.
Just pays itself forward. So that is amazing, and what a reflection of your culture. It's incredible. So as we get close to the end of our interview, I wanted to ask. I always ask our guests: is there a book or a podcast recommendation that you can make that you have found to be impactful on your character journey?
Well, I'll tell you, Clifton Talbot, The 8 Habits of the Heart. You can't go wrong with that. But then we did a book study with our parents, and we did it during COVID, so we had to do it virtually, but it was really great. By Thomas Lacona, How to Raise Kind Kids. And since kindness had just changed, one of our core values had changed to kindness. That was awesome. And I'm currently reading, because we hope to do another book study, a book called Thrivers. It's by Dr. Michelle Borba, and this is written post-COVID, so it talks a lot about the stress and anxiety kids suffer today. And she doesn't specifically call it core values, but she calls it character strengths, which are core values. So I'm about a third of the way through, and it's really eye-opening, and I think it will be a great read for our parents
Yeah.
and our teachers.
Yes, I've read that book and it is so good. And Dr. Borba is a great resource. And
Mhm.
I'll be sure to link all of that in our show notes. But if our listeners want to reach out to you for more information about what we discussed today, what are the best ways for them to connect with you?
Well, my email is always great, and we do have, the West Elementary has a Facebook page, and then, I have a Twitter account that I thought was our West Twitter account, but after y'all's one-day seminar, I realized that's an old account, but it's not linked with what I post. I post stuff, but it's at VHEW Hauser, um, which I thought was our school, but
Okay.
it must be my personal account, but I always do just school stuff. So I can get that information to you, Jennifer.
Sure. And I'll link that in the show notes, because I feel like that our listeners are really going to want to learn even more about your school, maybe even come visit. And I just thank you, Kim, for being here today and sharing about the incredible work that you and your school community are doing for character development. I just hope that our listeners will reach out to you to glean the wisdom and visit your school and see and evidence, of your culture. And our listeners, if you're still with us, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss another episode. Thanks again, everyone, and take care.
Thanks, Jennifer.